Remember this number, 39. 39% is the approval rating of the President of the United States of America today, in April 2026, the lowest across both terms. The newspapers say it's a disaster. Cable channels call it a collapse. Those who waited 10 years to see this say it's the end of the project, hooray. And today I'll tell you the exact opposite. I'll tell you that this number is 39. This is not a disaster, it's a signal. And this signal is, now I'll say something that won't be immediately clear, but I'll explain it. This is the best news we've received all year. And by the end of this conversation, I promise you, stand tap. There are two things that are clear, which almost no one in our community talks about today. First, it's about exactly what kind of door has just opened for us in our relationship with Iran. Why, by the way, almost no one noticed this is also completely unclear to me, right? And second, 3 specific steps that will completely turn the situation around. And an exact timeline where we'll see when prices will go down, when the ratings will start to recover, and when victory will become visible to everyone, including even those who are laughing today. At the end of this video, I'll also tell you what all of you want to know. Why, as many people say, no one is being prosecuted. And what is really happening with that? No speculation, no chatter, no rumors. Let's finish with the current topics, and I'll give you some good news, ladies and gentlemen. But I want to start with the most disgusting event that happened yesterday on American television. In terms of how disgusting it is, it's comparable to Europeans claiming that, of course, political violence should be excluded from our lives, but the person who attempted to take Trump's life can be understood. That is, they can understand. After the assassination attempt, one of the most well-known news analysis shows in the United States, 60 Minutes requested an interview with the president. Naturally, the question about the assassination attempt was central. They discussed the identity of the attacker, his motivation, and everything else that happened before, during, and after the event. And that's when a scandal broke out. Well, of course, it was a scandal that started after the absolutely disgusting question from the interviewer. Just listen to what she's asking and what nonsense she's trying to feed her listeners, trying to push on them the very same brainwashing they've been subjected to by the mass media, just like all the other citizens of the United States of America. She decided to slip this into the interview, the claim that Trump is a pedophile, a murderer, a scumbag, and of course, a fascist. Well, what can I tell you? Just listen for yourselves.
Mr. President, the so-called manifesto is a staggering document. Apparently, in it, he points to the motive. He writes the following, I quote, "Administration officials are targets." And he also wrote, "I no longer intend to let a pedophile, a rapist, and a traitor stain my hands with his crimes." What is your reaction to this?
Well, I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you are terrible people, terrible people. Yes, he wrote that. I'm not a rapist. I didn't rape anyone. I'm not a pedophile. Excuse me. I'm not a pedophile. Did you read that nonsense?
Come on. Is she serious? That's exactly why Trump is calling her to account. This is why this is one of the wildest interviews following the White House Correspondents Association dinner, where someone literally tried to break through and get as close to Trump as possible, but was tackled to the ground in the middle of it all. And we know his manifesto, we know he's a Democrat, we know he was on Blue Sky, we know what he thinks about Trump. He was at the No Kings rally, and she's just pretending to be clueless. This is just some kind of nonsense.
To let a pedophile, a rapist, and a traitor dirty my hands with their crimes. What do you say?
I was waiting for you to read it, knowing you would, because you are terrible people.
I can't even find the words to describe how I feel about those scumbags who made up things in the interview. They supposedly asked questions, but really just repeated all the lies they told about Trump, pretending it was about what Trump thinks about it. But here's what they got.
They dragged me into things that have nothing to do with me. I was completely cleared by your friends on the other side of the barricade. Those were the ones involved, let's say, in the Epstein case or something like that. But I told myself, I'll give this interview, and I read the manifesto. You know, he's a sick person, but you should be ashamed to read something like that because I'm not like that. And I never, sorry, you shouldn't have read that on 60 Minutes. You keep doing this. It's disgraceful. Let's end the interview.
There's something else he wrote, and one more important point.
Oh God, Trump is exposing her because he knows the tactics she tried to use.
Another point in the manifesto that I think is worth paying attention to when determining his motive is that he had been staying at the hotel since Friday. He checked in. He said that he scouted the area and wrote, "What the hell is the Secret Service doing?" And he wrote this quote, "I expected to see surveillance cameras everywhere, wiretaps in the rooms, armed agents every 3 meters, and metal detectors everywhere." I got nothing. He wrote something like, "The level of incompetence is just off the charts." Sir, you've already had 2 attempts.
Well, he was incompetent too, since he got caught so easily. Yeah, I'd say he was clueless. You know, I can find a flaw in any security system. Those guys last night did a great job.
I'm mentioning this because regarding his motives, as you said, his social media had anti-Trump and anti-Christian rhetoric.
Which you should read. Why don't you read Criticism of Trump? If you started, why not finish reading it?
He often used anti-Christian slogans. He was a member of the White Awakes group. He attended the No Kings protest in California. What did the security service say about his motives?
Counsel, you have such people only because there are opponents of kings. I am not a king at all. If I were, I definitely wouldn't have anything to do with you.
Let's go back to what the leaders of the Democratic Party and their main propagandists said and are saying about Trump.
I don't understand why there aren't uprisings nationwide. Maybe there will be. It's time for people to go out
into the streets.
You have to
understand that he is a dictator. You know, there will be a threat in the streets until we have a threat.
They are enemies of our state.
Where does it say that protests have to be so polite and peaceful?
Do something about your father's immigration policy.
Scum, when they go down, we drink.
How do you stop yourself from running up and snapping her neck?
The main threat here is white men, mostly far-right radicals.
You should have hit him. I said, Tay, let it go. He insulted your wife. On the escalator, he called Mexicans murderers. He asked, what was I supposed to do? I said, you should have walked away. You would have been a hero.
I want to punch him. If we were in school, I would have taken him behind the gym and taught him a lesson. Have a drink.
Who doesn't?
Again, I don't want to go into detail. You already know this story. You know what happened next. You know everything.
Right now, the threat to the American people in this country is the radical MAGA Republicans. That's the threat. That's the problem. This is the crisis we're facing.
After hearing that, even I started clenching my fists, grinding my teeth, and sparks flew from my eyes. Now imagine the people who hear this constantly, every single day. Plus, there are things I can't show in this video because it would be taken down right away. So what the 60 Minutes correspondent tried to push during the interview with Trump is their normal, usual, vile, scummy tactic. After all, they can't really win, essentially. That's why they try to make their opponents look bad. You know, to scare people and drive them into a frenzy, making them want to kill. In fact, that's the main goal of the Democratic Party today, to throw dirt and filth at those they can't actually defeat. But let's get back to the ratings and the situation in the country. There's quite a lot to talk about here. I was ready to talk to you for about half an hour or so. It's not about, you know, wasting your time. It's so we can really understand what's going on. Because where others see just one headline, we need to have the full picture. But that's how we work. That's how we think. That's how we win. And before we begin, please, if this channel helps you understand what's going on, if what I say hits the mark, give it a like, subscribe, and hit the bell. A very important feature, the bell. Without it, you'll miss the next conversation because YouTube is getting more and more selective every day about what it shows you. Subscribing plus the bell is your vote. It's your yes to this channel. It's what allows us to keep going. Thank you. So, 39%. Let's figure out right away what that actually means, because headlines don't lie with words, they lie with averages. When we open these surveys and look inside, And we have to do this because without it, we don't really understand what the voter is telling us. We see things that no one writes about. The drop in ratings is specific. I'll explain what I mean. The president is given 30%, not even 39%, but 30% for how he is handling the war with Iran. 30%. That's 20% lower than his overall rating. 48% of Americans say they feel less safe because of this war. I think that's natural. Only 30% say they feel more secure. Those are the ones I don't understand. Why do they feel more secure now? When we either get Iran to completely change its behavior or it quiets down for about 10 years, then they'll feel that way. But now, I don't know. Approval of how the president is handling the cost of living is at 23%. Well, that's natural. Disapproval is at 76%. Net rating is minus 53%. Oh, that's a nightmare. That's terrible. Such a negative rating on economic issues is almost unheard of, or doesn't happen at all in modern American politics. This is the level where the voter says, that's it, I can't, I don't want to, I can't pay anymore. Now take these two numbers and compare them to 100%. You are expressing my word. What does a baseline rating mean? 23. Both are deep underwater. And look at the rest. The border still has a positive rating. A tough stance on China still has a positive rating. Cultural issues still have a positive rating. America First is still positive. Dear ones, I was searching for a year, reading Noodle Book. I even thought I was NDBP from Trump's ideas. The voter did not say that Trump was wrong on border issues, wrong on trade policy, or wrong about putting Americans first. None of that happened. None of that changed. What happened? Actually, it's very simple. The voter is paying a war tax that he doesn't just disapprove of. He doesn't really understand it. And he sends, for example, a signal, a clear, precise, urgent one. I want this to stop. 39% is not a verdict. It's a signal. If we make the wrong diagnosis, we'll prescribe the wrong medicine. And in Washington this week, a lot of people are writing, actually prescribing the wrong medicine. And here's what happened. Two things came together as one. It's not two stories, it's one story. The war with Iran drove up the price of oil. Iran is located next to the Hormuz Strait. Through this strait, as we've discussed many times, about 1/5 of all the oil consumed by the world passed every day. When there's shooting in this region, traders factor in the risk. When traders factor in the risk, the price of oil goes up. When oil prices rise, gasoline prices increase. As gasoline prices go up, the cost of nearly everything transported by trucks also rises. And here's what's important. The war has created not only a foreign policy problem, the war has created an economic problem. It created it in the most visible, most painful, most week-to-week way. Well, at the gas station and in the store. Editor, every American who fills up their car, let's say twice a week, yes, pays a tax for the war. He sees the numbers right in front of him twice a week. Continuing. Every American who buys groceries is paying a tax for the war. Every time he goes to the checkout, he remembers that it used to be different. It used to cost less. He may not know the exact amount, but he definitely dislikes it. He didn't vote for this tax, he didn't approve it, but he can't avoid it, he can't stop eating. And every time he pays it, he's reminded against his will that somewhere there's a war going on, the reason for which he doesn't quite understand. That's the whole mechanism, that's the entire mechanism of the rating we were talking about. The economy was already on edge, the previous administration's inflation hadn't completely gone away, wages were growing slowly, people were just starting to feel that the worst was behind them, and then the war broke out, and oil drove everything else up. The slow recovery came to a halt. That's a diagnosis, narrow, specific, and that's exactly why it's good news. Because here's what this diagnosis doesn't mean. It doesn't mean the country has decided that socialism is the answer. It doesn't mean the country wants to bring back those who were in charge before. It doesn't mean that the cultural shift has been reversed. It doesn't mean that the border is unpopular again. It doesn't mean that trade policy is unpopular again. It doesn't mean that Trump's project is over. It only means one thing. The voter wants prices to go down. And for that, it seems the war needs to end. The whole list, just one item. He wants prices to go down. And he says, do something about it, or else I want to say this is very important, and I want you to hear this correctly. When a country gives its leader a list, well, let's say 2 points, yes, I would say 1 point, but there are 2, yes, like ending the war, prices, or just saying lower the prices, yes, that's not a country in revolt. That's a country having a conversation with its leadership. The voter isn't shouting, the voter is speaking. He's telling the president exactly what he wants. Lower the prices and go back to what you promised. Well, things like America First and so on, yes. A leader who hears these signals correctly is in an extremely strong position because the signal is also a map the voter is showing. Here, this is where the road back begins. Go down this road. Now we move on to the most interesting part. I promised you at the beginning that I would tell you about the door that just opened. Now we're going there. Let me remind you once again what lies ahead of us. We will look at what exactly the American administration can do right now to turn the situation around, to change its course. And at the very end of this conversation, I will tell you 3 specific steps that will turn all the numbers around. I will give you a timeline for when prices will drop, when the ratings will recover, and when victory will become obvious to everyone. I have said many times, I am not Cassandra, but I take my words back. This time, I am Cassandra. Stay with me until the end. It's worth it. In recent days, the Iranian government has put an offer on the table. It's serious, and that needs to be emphasized. Iranians don't make serious offers just like that. When they put something real on the table, it means they already have everything ready internally for a way out. The offer consists of 3 parts. First, to open the Strait of Hormuz completely for unrestricted shipping. Second, to end the active military phase of the war. No one is demanding, so to speak, the withdrawal of our ships, but the active phase must end. Third, to postpone the issue of their nuclear program and move it to separate negotiations that will start later. I understand that their goal is to stall. What if something happens there? They might not even start the basics there and so on. But I want you to think about what each of these 3 parts means. Because when you understand what this means, you'll realize that we're standing at the door, and that door has started to open. The Strait of Hormuz. That means they've opened it. It means that the spike in oil prices, the very thing that drives inflation, which in turn drives the collapse on those issues, is almost instantly removed. Well, the futures markets will react first. They always do. Retail gas stations will react, give or take, a few weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. By the time the next surveys come out, the cost of living figure will stop getting worse. By the time the surveys after the next ones come out, it will start to improve. The end of the active phase of the war means that the second wound, that is, approval on handling the war, 48% of those who feel less protected will stop bleeding. This wound can't be patched up as long as the bombs keep falling. It can only be stopped when the war stops. That's exactly what the Iranians are proposing. Let's stop the war. Moving the nuclear issue to negotiations means that the president is not giving up the main goal. He is not saying that Iran can have nuclear weapons. He is not giving up leverage. He is simply moving a more complex issue into a slower process. This is exactly what serious diplomacy looks like. And here's what's important. I didn't come up with this. The U.S. Secretary of State, who, to put it mildly, is not in the habit of praising Iranian proposals, has already publicly said that this proposal is better than expected. This is the diplomatic equivalent of a signal flare. This is Washington talk. Nah. A reaction to something real being on the table. So what should be done? In my opinion, the following. First of all, take the deal. I'm not talking about the first draft right now, that's clear, right? Take the deal. Bargain around the edges if necessary, but accept the basic framework. clearly announce what has been achieved. The Strait of Hormuz is open. The war, well, at least for now, is over. American interests are protected. Iran does not have nuclear weapons, and we will continue to ensure that it never does. Then stop. Stop the operations. Bring the units back, again, maybe not all of them. Put the pause in writing and don't gloat. The voter doesn't need a victory parade. The voter needs the war to end and the price of gasoline, and consequently everything else, to go down. Give him that, and give it to him on Tuesday morning. And on Wednesday evening, you'll see that pollsters will restart their polls. I want to focus on one point. I've heard some analysts, I think Democrats or their agents, say that ending the war now would be a sign of weakness. I want to respond to this directly, because I believe that's not true. And this untruth has already cost American presidents elections in the past. There is no weakness in stopping. The original American goal was simple. Iran must not have nuclear weapons. Progress has been made toward that goal. The Iranian program has been seriously set back. The Strait of Hormuz is now in play, and the price for keeping it in play is on the negotiating table. Walking through the door that the Iranians themselves opened is not weakness, because strength is achieving the goal. Strength is not bombing for the sake of bombing. Endless war is not strength. Endless war is what weak sides do when they can't figure out how to win. A strong move is a move that voters will support, a move that history will record, a move that will pay off in the strategic balance. Walk through the open door, take the victory, and turn the page. Okay, that's the diagnosis, that's the door, that's the specific move. Now let's talk about the big picture. Not about how the president will gain a few percentage points on the issues, but about how this moment will become a turning point that will strengthen the project called Trump.
America first.
For years to come, we win when we remember what this project has always been about. America First has never been about endless intervention. It has never been about playing the policeman in the Middle East. I understand that Israel would very much like us to finish off the Ayatollah. But if the price of that is Trump and the Republicans losing the election, Israel will have a hard time. America First was about something else. About a country that first and foremost takes care of its own. About a country that trades honestly with the world. About a country that projects strength. You know, right? What is that for? So that it will be left alone. About a country that refuses to shed blood for other people's problems. About a country that knows the difference between defending its own and a crusade for others. That's what was promised. That's what brought this president to the White House twice. That's what built a coalition that no one in Washington predicted, and no one in Washington could break it, even though they tried hard. There was a war with Iran. It was, well, let's say a retreat, a drift away from that doctrine. I'll be straight with you, because we need to be honest with each other. Whatever the immediate reason was, whatever the strategic argument was, the war put the project at odds with its own fundamental promise. Although, once again, I was and will be in favor of this campaign against Iran, the voter, who is smarter than any sociologist gives him credit for, he felt it right away. The voter doesn't need a foreign policy briefing to know that something has gone off track. He felt it at the gas station. He arrived, started pumping gas, and felt it right away. He felt it in the news. He felt it in his gut. The voter isn't always eloquent, but the voter is almost always right about the big picture. Yes, we had to go to this war, but life got worse for the farmer in Iowa and the auto repair shop owner in Montana. Gentlemen, I told you that we are winning, despite the polls coming out in recent days. Yes, and here's why. We found out that the drop in ratings is not because of Trump's overall policy, but because of a specific single issue. And as soon as we eliminate it, solve it, we will reassure the American citizen who truly wants America first. So how do we win? We win by treating this moment not as a defeat, but as an adjustment. The voter is correcting our course. A president, if he's wise, accepts the adjustment. By the way, Clinton did that after 2 years in office. What does the president do? He ends the war if the people send him that correction. He returns to the doctrine. He does it openly. He does it visibly, clearly, visibly, so that it's right in front of everyone, and he names what he's doing. This is something Trump knows how to do. To name, to define, to promote, to explain. And then this is the part that no one is talking about yet. He uses this turnaround to push the original agenda even harder, stronger than ever before. That's what's on the other side of the end of the war.
Развязанная.
Domestic energy sector. The kind of deregulation that actually lowers real prices on real things. Tariff policy calibrated for the worker, not for a newspaper headline, when more and more and more manufacturing jobs are created. Trade deals that put American manufacturing first. They reset manufacturing here, not transferred to China, and a border that remains protected. That is, we let in those we need, those we want, and not crowds of those who, well, maybe decided to come here at the urging of our enemies. Each of these is a victory. Put together over 6 months, it becomes recovery. Put together over a year, this becomes a legacy. And now comes the moment we've been talking about for the past 40 minutes. I promised you 3 specific steps. I promised you a timeline. Listen carefully. Step 1. End the war with Iran during May, at the latest in May. Not in September, not by summer, in May. Accept Iran's proposal in one form or another, clearly outline the achievements, stop operations, bring the units back. Basically, the press conference should be businesslike, no triumph. The voter doesn't need a parade. He needs a clear signal. It's over. Step 2. An energy turnaround, clearly and visibly. Open drilling where it was previously closed. Remove regulatory blocks that hinder production. Bring export capacity up to full strength. This delivers a second blow to gasoline prices. After the opening of the strait removes the initial shock. Not just one effect, but 2 effects in a row. Step 3. A public information campaign. Probably no less, and maybe even more important than everything else, to show America that it has won, and most importantly, that every American has won. A specific medication whose price has gone down. A specific tariff that has been canceled or adjusted. The voter does not reward the drop in price. The voter rewards the feeling that prices are going down. Perception of reality is sometimes the most important thing. Even, forgive me, of course, more important than reality itself. Give the voter a story, and give this story a name. Now the chart. Listen. If the war ends in May, oil will stabilize within 2 weeks. Gas prices at the stations will start to go down by early July. Polls will show the first improvement in the overall rating by the end of July. Significant improvement by September. By September, we're no longer talking about 39%, we're talking about 45, 46, maybe even higher. This isn't just blind optimism. This is a chart tied to the real economy, to real political dynamics, which we've seen many times before. Polls always follow politics with a lag of about 1.5 to 2 months. Gasoline prices always follow oil with a lag of no more than 5 weeks. This is mathematics, not belief. I want to finish with something personal, because I've been doing this for a long time. I've been observing American politics from both inside and outside. I've seen many such moments before. I've seen presidents with 39% approval ratings for whom that was the end. I've seen presidents with 39% who came back stronger than ever. The difference between them was never just the number itself. The difference is whether the underlying story can be fixed. And whether the leader is ready to fix it. This time, the story can be fixed. Dialogue. Dialogue with the Iranians is ongoing. Our diagnosis is narrow. The door is open. Political and strategic interests align perfectly. There is no contradiction between the right step and the popular step. It's the same step. End the war with them and return to the doctrine. The voter is asking for it. The Iranians are offering a way out. State secrets signal that the way out is real. The only question Will we take it? I believe we will. Although maybe Trump has something better in mind. I believe this president has already shown that he knows how to turn quickly. When the numbers tell him, he changed course on tax policy when he needed to, he changed course on personnel, he changed course on tone when he needed to. This man knows how to read and understand numbers. The numbers are telling him to end the war. Now. Right now, the numbers are telling him to end the war because he needs to. Lower the price of gasoline, I believe, because the alternative is this. Dragging out the war in the hope that something will change leads only to one place: a referendum at the ballot box. 26 years about the war, which is the base of the Republican Party, the MAGA base, the Trump base. Well, he doesn't want to lose the Senate, lose the House, or lose the doctrine for a generation. I'm sure of it. It seems to me he won't go for that. He has too much political instinct and there's too much at stake for us. So I expect that in the coming weeks, we'll see the war start to wind down. I expect that gas prices will start to go down, and I expect that the polls will start to recover. And I expect that when we talk about this a year from now, the number we'll mention won't be 39. That number will be completely different. It will be about the jobs that the project has kept, about the factories. Jobs, I mean. Yes, about the factories that have come back home, about the regulations that have been lifted. Once again, this isn't blind optimism, this isn't applause. This is optimism based on data, on diagnosis, on the door that's open right in front of us, and on the simple political fact that the voter gave the president a clear mandate, and it's the right mandate. When you turn off this screen and see the headline saying that the president's approval rating has collapsed, I want you to remember three things. First, the drop isn't what they say it is. The drop is concentrated. 2 specific wounds in 2 specific areas, both related to one specific war, and with one specific action. Both of these problems can be solved. We're ending the war, and the offer is on the table. For the first time in a long time, political and strategic interests have aligned. Third, on the other side of ending the war, there isn't just a quiet recovery, but rather a stronger version of the project than we had before. A project refined by the will of our own people. A project returning to its original promise. A project moving forward with great clarity. With more clarity than ever before, the voter speaks, he has spoken, the leader listens, the road is open, the numbers will follow the policy will follow the voters, and the voter is right, the client is right. That's why, with the polls where they are now, I'm more optimistic than I have been in the past few months, because I know what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a country that's healthy enough to push back against its own leader, and a leader who's smart enough to hear that push, that nudge, that kick, and correct himself. This isn't a picture of a republic in trouble. It's a picture of a republic working exactly as it was designed to work. Thank you, and keep the faith, because there is much to believe in. And the next 6 months will be much more interesting and much more positive than those people on the other side of the screen want you to believe, who want you to think that everything is terrible. Well, all right, now I'll tell you what I said at the beginning, namely why there have been no trials. Even though we know about the crimes committed by a huge number of people. Gentlemen, knowing that someone committed a crime is of course more than just suspecting it. Yes. But in order to go to court, at the very least, the statute of limitations for such crimes must not have expired. In other words, if the statute of limitations for a certain crime is 5 years, let's say, and you go to court 5 years and one day after it ends, the court simply won't accept your claim. You can bring photos, even a confession from the person themselves, anything you want. No one will consider the case if the statute of limitations has expired. Most of what the Democrats did in 1620 is not subject to review. We're already in 2026 now. You might ask, does that mean all their criminal activity will go unpunished? No, it doesn't mean that. But for that, you need to find a charge with a statute of limitations longer than 5 years, or no statute of limitations at all, or something else. And I want to reassure you, FBI Director Kash Patel just said in an interview with Maria Bartarova on Fox Business what we actually already knew. Several thousand FBI agents are working on gathering evidence for the charge in question. I'll explain the statute of limitations. The charge is conspiracy. That is, if it can be proven that there was a conspiracy to prevent Trump from coming to power or to overthrow his administration, then those 5 years don't matter at all. If I start explaining now in the case of conspiracy, when someone is charged with conspiracy, the statute of limitations is counted not from the moment the original crime was committed, but from the moment of what they call the last act within the conspiracy. That is, if even one of the participants in the conspiracy took any actions within its framework, so to speak, yesterday, then the statute of limitations resets and starts counting from the beginning again. If actions from 2016 to 2020 are re-examined and classified as a single ongoing conspiracy, and it is proven that its participants took any actions in 2023 or 2024, for example, obstructing justice, they acted, coordinated with each other, tried to hide something, then the 5-year statute of limitations is far from expired, and the criminal offense may still be legally prosecuted as used in American law. Yes, of course, this has been used before. There's nothing new about it. But the main thing is to identify the actions of the participants that took place as close to today as possible. Therefore, gentlemen, all these cases that we have discussed will not be considered separately, but will be presented to the American public. Like a huge network, like a web that covered the Democratic Party, all their accomplices and henchmen, including the press, and didn't stop for a single second. That is, it won't be individual people who are judged, not even individual organizations, but what is called the deep state. And in my opinion, that's wonderful news. What do you think? If you found this conversation helpful, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Share it with those who, in your opinion, need to hear this. See you next time. Take care. To be continued.